Hey guys, it's Ben the Coin Geek, and today's video is brought to you by the color yellow, the color gold, the color of money. Good stuff, right? So I've got some currency to show to you today, and we're going to talk a little bit more about in depth about these guys, both the overall eye appeal, the type, and how to identify a couple different things on them, and talk about the grade because we've got a few really cool looking gold certificates to show to you. And they have some differences. Of course, I've got a couple different denominations to look at, and a 10 and a couple of 20s, and then the two 20s are slightly different also. So we'll dive into that and take a closer look at these banknotes and a little bit on grading. And let's stop the yabbering and start looking close and personal at this $20 piece, which is really kind of cool look on the back. You know, this is such a interesting shade of yellow here because sometimes they come in slightly different shades. These ones are two very similar notes. You can see the one in the bottom of the screen there is a little bit darker, has some folding. This top one is actually certified, and so we're going to be able to go off of the grade a little bit there. One of the first things you'll notice though is there is a big color disparity on the front of this note. This bottom note's very much more of a yellow gold, and the top one is, will I say, more orange gold. There is more to this than meets the eye. Of course, now if you've been staring at them for a minute, you may also notice the fact that you've got different design elements here. All of a sudden this has a bunch of words on it. So this is the series of 1922, and this is the series of 1906. And then of course you actually have different autographs on these banknotes when you're trying to figure out the actual Friedberg number, the catalog that's used to decipher different types. Whenever you use that, one of the main things you're going to look at is the date and then also the signature combination. And you can see even here this earlier issue has more color to the front of it. That's from some of the earlier issues. So on these guys, you can see that you've got the signature series, and then you have your series by date, then your signatures. They talk about the seal size, the different seals that are on there, and then this number on the left-hand side is the Friedberg number, and then if you see a star after it, that's the star note version. The M, the little red M, is for a mule version. We're not going to get into that on this video, but we are going to look a little bit closer at the way to spot some of the differences here, and then the grade. So let's talk about the grade on this note here. So they call this a VF30 fine, a choice VF. One of the difficulties with graded notes, and this is a little bit of a difference between currency and coins, is that coin collectors would never do what currency collectors traditionally would do, which was a currency collector. For you to grade a note like this, you would invariably, and you'll still see dealers do this, actually pull the note out of the holder, and you'd actually see them feel the note, because what they're feeling for when they're feeling the note is to feel if the note has any rigidness to it. Rigidness? Ruffles have ridges, but these banknotes also have ridges, so you should be able to feel what they call the embossing. And if you can't feel the embossing, it's because the note is probably been pressed. So one of the things that people do is they press notes to get rid of the appearance of folds. And so sometimes having a backlight will help you see folds that maybe you couldn't see before, and at other times having the note at an angle will help you see folds you didn't see before. So an angle to the light sometimes will have. So when you see a dealer handling a note at different angles, you'll see that what they're looking for is actually to see, are there any folds, has it been pressed and played with. So the funny thing is, of course, at first blush this note looks like it's a really nice grade. Of course, then you look at the back of the note and it's pretty dirty. And it is a note that is quite noticeably been pressed. If you see all these white lines that are going up and down through the dark areas of there, all of those white lines going up and down, those are all areas where it was kind of crinkly that's been pressed out. So this note is, in my opinion, a lower grade VF, like a VF20, We're going to use some comparisons here. Also, for those of you who are buying graded banknotes, there's a huge disparity depending on when the notes were graded. Because this VF35 is a really great looking note. It has the eye appeal of an AU, but it has the technical aspects of a note that's going to be circulated. So one of the things that you're going to look at on this note one of the things that they're looking at is there are fold lines here. Like that white line is a fold line. And you got to be careful because if you hold it to the light the wrong way, or if you get too much light coming in, sometimes what you're seeing is the design element on the other side. I don't know if this light's going to help me much with this right now because I've got it kind of at the wrong angle here for you to see. But this light here, it looks, the line that looks white here now, when I get the light behind it, it actually looks dark. So oftentimes a fold, if you get the light behind it, will appear dark. It'll change the overall look of the note. So also, you know, this here, you can see that line appearing. So as a note is folded for a while, what happens is it collects dirt. And so what you're seeing there is a line that shows up. So usually when a note has been folded a few times, it drops down to one of the very fines. So a note that looks uncirculated or nearly uncirculated but has some folds that are just kind of hidden, that high-end VF35 is a good call. I will say that, like I was mentioning, depending on the time period a note's been graded, you'll find banknotes graded very, very fine that I think are technically extra fine or better. And also, I will say that I've seen notes graded middle VFs that are really dogs. So it's just a little bit like coins where you have to look closer and see how the banknote looks to you. We've got a series of, which series is this? 1922. All right, and we got Spielman and White, which is going to call this note a Friedberg 1173. And of course, our good friend here, Michael. Everyone knows Michael Hillegas, right? So probably not. This note is similar to this 20 that's graded VF35. And once again, it's easier to see sometimes the fold lines when a note is not in a holder. Sometimes it's just a lot easier to see where the note has been folded or not folded. And depending on how you get the note at an angle, you'll start seeing these little fine creases pop up. See that line there and that there? Those are all fold lines. They're not heavy creases, but you can see oftentimes it'll go, because a note will be folded, sometimes just folded in half. One of the tricky things about looking at a note is, of course, if you get just this flat line view of it and there's just bright white blasting down on it, it always looks like a higher grade because the light kind of washes away the lines. But once you learn where to look, and this is where you got to be careful because all of a sudden it looked like there's lines here, but those are the words on the other side. But there's that fold right there that pops up, and you get at the right angle, and you can really start to see those lines show up. They're especially easy to see usually by the edges of the note because there's not a design element to get in your visual way. This note I think is pretty comparable in grade to the certified one. I think I might actually call it maybe an XF40. But the notes are very comparable. And this note is about a $450 note or so in XF. The certified note here is about a $350 note, and the lower grade one is about a $200 note. And they're fun series to collect. It's a nice grade. I mean, for a couple $100 to get a note like this compared to what you can spend a couple $100 on, you know, once again, it's would you rather have this or would you rather have, you know, a brand new 2021 MS70, you know, commemorative dollar. You know, that's the type of thing. That's the type of thing that you look at and just say, which would I rather have? Which would I rather collect and own? Anyway, these are fun notes to collect. The gold series in particular is a pretty short series. In the green sheet, you can see it only takes up one small segment. And the entire series, you'll see if we look a little bit closer here, you've got the $10. This is the same way that they're listed in Friedberg, they're listed in the green sheet. So they'll actually go in numerical order on these. So you've got your $10, the different 1907 versions, and then you've got the 1922 versions. Then you get to the $20 pieces, starting in 1882. And then there's a few different Friedbergs on those. And then it switches 1905, just two different Friedbergs, 1906, 22. And then you get into the 50s on those, and they've got 1882, 1913, different issues. And we do have to, of course, turn the page. And we've got one more section because, pardon my noise, because the 50s continue into the different years, and then you get the hundreds, five. You get these big denominations, which you just never see, and those are real tough. But there's affordable notes up through the 50, even into the $100 notes. If you want to get into something that's a little bit more fun, these $100 notes. If you find one that's just a well-circ, low-grade note, it'll be $500, but they're really cool notes, really neat design. And once you get into the bigger denominations, these are things that are kind of on my hit list to own, like this $500 note here. You know, lower grade ones are several $1,000s, but I've been thinking about trying to find one. And you've got the different $1,000 notes, which are just wild notes. So stuff that most of us don't see very often. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. I'm Ben the Coin Geek. You can subscribe by clicking on the button in the corner and watch more videos on the right side of the screen. Thanks.